The offense has a lot of problems. Clemson loses to LSU at home in the season opener. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on the flagship station 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day, or maybe your last listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A big shout out to the everydayers out there, the ones that are subscribing and being a part of the show Monday through Friday, every single week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And also the LSU fans out there that are tuning in, thank you as well. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the like and subscribe button, because about 75% of you right now are enjoying the show. I know you are, and you haven't subscribed yet. So go ahead and do so. I really appreciate it. If you're a fan of the Morgan Thomas Show over on 105.5 The Roar, you know I like to do something called the Losers Support Group. Well, here at Locked On, you know, I have kind of a process that I go to, a show flow that I'll go through. So we'll stick to that. But this is kind of my version of the Locked On version of the Losers Support Group, if you will, even though I hate to say that it's the Losers Support Group, but it is, because LSU wins 17-10. Now, again, I'll go ahead and start out by saying there's a lot to be happy about if you're LSU. You've got that off of your back, the fact that Brian Kelly could not win those first games of the season. You got that off of your back. But it was just 17-10. So don't tell me you blew us out, or you kicked our tail up and down, or, you know, we have nothing to look forward to. The season's over already. The whole team's terrible. Everything we said were good was bad. There was a lot of bad. Don't get me wrong. And we'll get to it. There's a lot of frustrations. Don't get me wrong. But it still, you know, was a close game, was a tight game, was a very explosive offense that walked away with 17 points, you know. So there are some good things to glean from it as well. So we'll try to pick out a few good, and probably, because this is the Clemson podcast, a lot of bad. If you want more good, maybe go over to Matt over on Locked On LSU and get some of that. But I'm going to be real with you for sure. We had a few questions going into the game. The first question was, what happened between Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik? You know, this was supposed to be the Heisman Trophy battle between the two. You know, we kind of thought we'd see Arch Manning be kind of that Heisman Trophy display. And he looked, I don't know what I could say. He doesn't look like a leader of men out there for Arch Manning right now. He doesn't look like he can win games for you. I don't have any confidence in Arch Manning. When you look at someone like Garrett Nussmeier versus Cade Klubnik, these are two guys I felt like, yeah, you could definitely trust those guys. You can definitely trust Garrett Nussmeier. He is the one who won the battle. He walks away 28 for 38, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 74% passing completion rate. He did a great job. He managed the game. He was confident. He stayed in the pocket. He actually converted first downs with his legs. You know, when he needed to do it, he did it. And he stayed poised and didn't make the critical mistake. And, you know, seemed to be that guy who's going to definitely be a first-round draft pick. Cade Klubnik on the other end, it took him quite some time to get going. 19 for 38. 230 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 50% completion rating. 50% is not good. Now, if you don't know football, college football, you need to be about 64%, you know, for me to say you're good. But Cade Klubnik did not have a good night. And what really happened? You know, what happened between the two quarterbacks that caused that? Well, I was really shocked as the game went on that it was still 10-10 for so long. And I know there'll be some thoughts about, you know, that call in the end zone. And I get it. You know, if I was an LSU fan, I would be very upset. If you assumed it was a touchdown, then that should have been a touchdown because he crossed the line and had possession. If you assumed it was just out at the 1 yard line, then maybe that's where I could see that wouldn't count. But even still, that could have put them at 24 points there. So, I can understand the argument, but still just a 7-point game in between the two. What caused Cade Klubnik to not have success tonight? I really feel, one, it starts with the line of scrimmage. Who was going to win the trenches? Well, you can't walk away. I mean, it was going into the fourth quarter, and they were walking away with 31 rushing yards, and that's how they ended the game. And it seemed as if Garrett Riley, even in a close game, and I told my wife this, you feel like when you're down by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, what are you doing? You're pass. You have this sense of urgency to catch up. But for whatever reason, it was pass, and the game was tied. Or the game was down, they were only down by 7. I don't understand completely abandoning the run, even abandoning it with Cade Klubnik's legs. Cade actually did pretty well when he scrambled out, when he rolled out, but it didn't seem consistent enough. It seemed they went straight into just passing the ball, and they couldn't get anything going at all. A lot of frustration there. They had a final push to the end. Big drop by one of their top wide receivers in Bryant Wesco. It was a little bit over his opposite shoulder, but in a clutch game, you've got to be able to pull in those balls if the ball was placed properly. I mean, you look at Barry and Brown, that was a difficult catch, albeit it was returned back as an incompletion, but still, wide receivers stepping up was big. For me, it's a few things with Cade. One, and why Cade couldn't hang with Garrett Nussmeier. One was the offensive line. They couldn't win the trenches. They couldn't get a run game going. If you don't get a run game to support your passing game, I feel like you get stuck there for sure. And then two, it didn't seem like there was a lot of creativity on the Clemson sideline. I mean, when I look at what LSU did, can you not say they didn't throw the kitchen sink at Clemson? I mean, Xavier Thomas had a pass. I mean, he was in this jet sweep. He was in the running game. He was in the passing game. I mean, you had all kinds of different looks from all kinds of different players. They ended up with 9 receivers. Going into the fourth quarter, Clemson only had used 4 different guys in the passing game, 4 compared to 9. To me, creativity was a big concern, and a lot of credit can go back to that LSU defense for sure, because the LSU defense was getting a lot of pressure. And I mentioned to you for the past couple of weeks now, to me, it was a line of scrimmage game. And obviously, the Bayou Tigers won that one for sure. Still a lot of question marks for Cade Klubnik walking away from this, a lot of question marks for the running game walking away from this, and a lot of question marks, again, Clemson fans won't like this, but a lot of question marks for the offensive line that was supposed to be that, core group of guys that have been there for so many years now under Matt Luke, still not giving Cade Klubnik enough time to really even do anything but, scramble to the right side like he always does, which is another predictable thing that you don't want to have happen. Hey, all right, this is kind of an additional show. This is a 6th show of the weekend, so I do need to go through my normal ads and live reads for you. So stick with me. I see all the comments in there. There's a ton of people in there. I really appreciate everybody being a part of the show, but I do want to make sure I give a lot of credit to our sponsors as well. First, I want to say this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And we'll be right back with some more discussion on the trenches and that rushing attack as well from Clemson. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Gametime. The app gives you the advantage. Back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. So what you see is what you pay. You know I've used the Gametime app to go to Atlanta Braves games, to go to Clemson games. It's been really exciting to use because you see exactly where you're sitting from that seat view, and you can pick the zone so you know exactly what you get from that area at the best price, even with the fees included. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right. Hey, I appreciate the support there with some of our sponsors. We'll still have a few more before we finish up the show. But I wanted to also say that we have an important request for our fans out there. We actually have a survey. Locked On wants to hear from you. They put together a survey to learn more about what our listeners like, what their favorite podcasts are, and how to make them even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, answer questions about our advertising. Go over to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered in for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right. I appreciate everyone jumping back in with me. You know, there's a lot going on. Obviously, this is my first post-game show here on Locked On. This is my first season with Locked On. Start back on February 3rd. You know, I've done a lot of live shows with my own channel and on the radio, but it's fun and unique to do it here on Locked On. So I appreciate the support that everybody has been bringing me so far. You know, this one is tough because it is concerning when you walk away with only having 31 rushing yards, 1.6 yards per carry. You could say 53 if you do the sack adjusted rushing yards of 2.9, but 2.9 yards per carry is not cutting it. 1.6 yards per carry is not cutting it. Whatever they decided to do, or whatever they were going to do, or whatever they were selling us with Adam Randall is not working, or they abandoned it too quickly. He only had 5 attempts. I don't understand how you can allow any of your top running backs to only have 5 attempts. They really only gave Cade Klubnik 8 attempts. Tyler Brown had 1. TJ Moore had 1. David Eziomume, supposed to be your running back number 2, 3 attempts. Gideon Davidson. Okay, let me just go ahead and say this is why I'm ultimately confused for sure. Gideon Davidson, who is supposed to be the best running back out of Virginia, one of your best recruits in your recruiting class. You know, we know that Dabo Swinney likes to hold his freshmen. We know that against Georgia, he didn't like to really play Wesco Moore and Brown. And those guys are like core guys now. And they really, talent-wise, probably should have played against Georgia in 2024. I think we're going to look back with Gideon Davidson, unfortunately, and say, why didn't he get more playing time? I mean, we're looking again, no rushing from him. And the one time they put him out there that I can remember, they had him blocking for Keith Adams Jr. and blocking Harold Perkins Jr., Harold Perkins Jr., who's healthy. You had your true freshman. The one thing that you say, hey, you know what? I want to see Gideon Davidson rush the ball. You know, I'm not sure. I'm not confident with his pass blocking yet. I'm not confident with his run blocking, but hey, I know he's skilled at rushing the ball. Did LSU come out with Harlem Berry and have him blocking for someone else? No, they gave him the ball immediately. Now he did okay, but you know, he got kind of stuffed, but they gave him a traditional opportunity. I was worried about Harlem Berry. He didn't get a ton of options. You know, he got just one time and it didn't really work out for him. But for nothing for Gideon Davidson when he's really supposed to be your running back 3, LSU used multiple different ways to run the ball, even with it when it wasn't Caden Durham, 17 attempts, 74 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. That's a legit running back right there. That's a real number one. Adam Randall had 3.2 yards per carry, but they just didn't. 5 carries from your running back, 3 from David Ezeomume, 8 total from your actual running. Keith Adams Jr., you throw him in. 9 rushes from your running backs. That to me makes no sense. So either it was on purpose or it was by design because of something else failing. It had to have been, I think, a combination of both. I felt as if Garrett Riley quickly said, hey, you know what? This isn't working. I'm just going to straight up passing. And obviously that didn't work out for them. Garrett Riley also maybe had seen that the offensive line just wasn't holding up to that transfer portal group of guys that LSU has. And LSU has a lot of talent. I've said it to you for about a month now. The biggest question for us was not that LSU couldn't win this game, was not that LSU didn't have talent. It was simply that they hadn't played together. So the biggest hope for me, and I've said it day after day, was one, that you play in Death Valley Clemson Memorial Stadium. That you had those fan base behind you, and that did help. They did cause a couple of false starts and some miscommunication. They did get involved. The fan base was there, but that only helps you so far, right? Everybody knows that the fan base can affect you, but only so much. What we saw is, I think, over time, the depth of talent that LSU has with their number one transfer portal class and their speedsters that they have, and just the sheer number of options allowed them to be extremely creative. I happen to still believe that Clemson has a lot of talent and a lot of options, but it seemed as if the creativity was just not there. So what happened to the creativity? Was it that they just did not win in the trenches? I mean, time of possession was destroyed. 37 minutes for LSU. I mean, almost 3 full quarters there for LSU. Clemson 20, just barely over a quarter and a little bit, quarter and 5 minutes. So 22 minutes to 37 minutes, 2.9 yards per carry adjusted. Cade Klubnik making critical decisions towards the end that caused them to lose the game. Everything kind of compounded. It started with the trenches, and that's where it kind of rolled through. I can see where the frustrations could be for Clemson fan base, because honestly, it seems like the offense still has a lot of the same problems again and again and again. So my ultimate question is now, remember I told you that I said Cade can be a Heisman guy if he is able to get over the hump. If you go back to my hump day show on Wednesday, I said what? He's got to get over the hump, and the hump is coming this Saturday. Well, we just saw the hump, and unfortunately, maybe we have some hump aversion. I don't know if that's a good way of saying it, but Cade is showing us that while he can win the ACC championship, we have no proof right now that he can win the most difficult games in his schedule. Clemson's not afraid. Dabo's not afraid to schedule difficult SEC teams. Obviously, he gets South Carolina every single year, but he's not afraid to throw in the LSUs of the world, the Georgias of the world, and unfortunately, for the past couple of years, outside of, say, Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence, and even with them, they struggled here and there. The ability to win the biggest of the big when the spotlight is on you the brightest, we're not seeing that from Cade Klubnik. So he cannot be a Heisman Trophy hopeful. The guy that walks away from this, to me, is Garrett Nussmeier. He has to be the number one Heisman Trophy guy. Of all the quarterbacks we saw this weekend, now, albeit we do have some more games coming up on Sunday, which I'm going to look forward to seeing Lenore Sellers. I don't really want to say I'm going to look forward to seeing Carson Beck, but those may be the last 2 guys we could see. There's not going to be many challengers, in my opinion, to Garrett Nussmeier. As great of a game as he played tonight, with how poised he is and 74% completion rate, to me, Garrett Nussmeier he's already got all the weapons he needs. He's just going to get more and more lethal as the season goes on. If these guys can stay healthy, and by the way, they didn't even use Chris Hilton Jr., which is one guy that I was kind of worried about the most. They have so many weapons. It is kind of unreal. And they seem to know how to use them. And they have a quarterback that is calm, cool, and collective and on his way to New York City, in my opinion, based on this. So definitely a difficult loss for Clemson. A great win for LSU. They should be commended for their creativity, for their talent that they have, for their just poised to continue through the game as it was. They were down for a while and then they were tied for a while. So it was a close game, whether or not you want to believe, we totally beat you down or not. And I get where LSU fans have that bragging right to say, hey, we beat you down. They out gained them by almost 100 yards, had 12 more first downs than Clemson. And really without those turnovers that Clemson got on defense, it could have been a bigger spread on the scoreboard as well. All right. Hey, we'll finish up the show talking about the wasted efforts. I want to give a little bit of a highlight on Clemson's defense before we finish up. But I appreciate everyone being a part of the show right here on Locked On Clemson. Hey, Clemson fans. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code football, FOOTBALL, and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it is legit. People are getting paid just to make their daily commutes. And you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime in your bank account, PayPal, or gift card to Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app today and use my limited time promo code football, FOOTBALL, for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right. I appreciate everyone getting in. I know the LSU fans are definitely loving this. This is my first live show, post-game show. We have a ton of people in the comments, and I think we peaked out at about 200. So thank you so much for the support. I will also upload an edited version of this over to the podcast as well. So if you're listening on podcast, thank you as well. I think this is one of those games where it's another wake up for Clemson fans as well as myself. I'm preaching to myself, a Clemson fan, Clemson grad. It is difficult to kind of walk away from this. I do believe that Clemson had a lot of wasted strong efforts. The Clemson's defense, I believe, did really well. They were able to get turnovers. They were able to get fumbles, and Avion Terrell, outside of, that one-on-one versus Tre'Davious Green, which we knew, if you listened to any of my shows, you knew Tre'Davious Green was going to be a threat in the red zone. There's nothing you can really stop a guy that's 6'7" and knows how to play ball. I mean, it really is what it is. When it happened, I thought, man, all my LSU fans that have been listening to me, that have been supporting me, and that have been actually giving me great feedback, have been telling me about Tre'Davious Green for, I don't know, probably 2 months now. So I was well prepared for that touchdown, to be honest with you. I was not shocked by any way because, it just made sense to me. That's what you would do. There really was nothing that shocked me other than the fact of the creativity. One thing that really did go different from what I thought on Clemson's defense was just the fact of, being able to or going into kind of not pressuring Garrett Nussmeier. I don't know if you saw this as well, but in my opinion, it did not seem that Clemson really pressured as much as I expected. TJ Parker got in there a little bit. Peter Woods did well. Will Helt got a sack. Clemson had 8 tackles for loss. They had 72 total tackles. So, they were really getting after it, but they really didn't. I didn't feel like pressured Garrett Nussmeier as much as I felt like they needed to. And maybe it kind of goes back to, well, as I was watching the game, it kind of goes back to the fact that LSU just really has that much talent, to be honest with you. I thought that Clemson would be able to bring a few more, and they would need to test that offensive line. They really had it kind of set up because Tyree Adams, their left tackle, was hurt there for a little bit, and then they had to move DJ Chester over, who I don't know how much he's played left tackle, but I don't think any or much at all. So they had to move him over. They got Eccles in left guard, who's a guy we really didn't think about at all. So their offensive line still had to move up and get shaken up, and it seemed as if Clemson could not get as much pressure as I thought. I don't think they really tried as much as I thought either, but it goes back to the fact that when you look at the creativity and the amount of talent that they had, I don't think Tom Allen really felt like he could afford to attack them with multiple players because it would leave somebody wide open. I mean, as LSU fans have tried to explain to me, and I listened, but didn't want to really believe it. But the thing is, they have Aaron Anderson. He's going to be a big-time threat. They have Berrien Brown. He's a guy you can't forget about either. Jujuwan Johnson, didn't really think about him, but, he had a good night. Bauer Sharp, I feel like they did. He was also another guy. Caden Durham, Trey'Dez Green, Xavier Thomas. To me, Xavier Thomas was the big killer. I don't think Clemson had any answer for that. But the unfortunate thing is, I didn't even name Kyle Parker or Chris Hilton, and that's 7 guys, and that doesn't include Harlan Berry or Garrett Nussmeier either. So just the amount of ways that they could attack you really stresses out a defense a ton. The fact that Clemson was able to hold them to just 17 points, I think, is a huge testament to the efforts on the defensive side of the ball and the improvement that Clemson has been able to do on the defense. Walking away with just allowing 108 rushing yards is a huge deal for this Clemson defense that typically would allow teams to run all over them. Now, there was no way they were going to get away from the big gash plays. LSU's just absolutely too talented. But you can admit that Tom Allen has improved this team, that the additions have improved this team, but that this offense that they were going against just literally just out-talented them. They just had way too many options, out-optioned them, if you will. There was just too many things for Garrett Nussmeier to pick from and to pick apart, in my opinion. And it's difficult for a defense. So, unfortunately, the biggest concern is that while Clemson's defense held in the red zone, while Clemson's defense held on 4th down, they only allowed them one more 3rd down conversion than Clemson. Clemson was 3 of 13. LSU was 4 of 11. But the problem is the defense was gassed because they were out there for 37 minutes. They had to do 72 tackles, and that was almost double what the amount of tackles that LSU even had to do. So the biggest thing was the defense, to me, showed that they have talent, showed that they can hold a talented offense to under 24 points, which I think is massive because this LSU team is going to score in the 30s most of the time. Honestly, most of the time. Maybe if this was at Baton Rouge, LSU would have scored 30. Maybe it was a lot to go back to the being a Clemson home game. If you throw in that one that we have a controversial referee call, right? If you throw that one in, that's still just 24 points. So that's under 30. So to me, the defense, I do feel like we can give them some props there for holding such a talented offense that LSU has. Again, it goes back to the drawing board here. For me, there's still huge question marks about Cade Klubnik. Can he actually win the big game? Believe it or not, he was only down by 7 with 2 minutes to go and had the ball, but couldn't do it. Again, another time into the game, biggest opponent of the season, probably couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Now, he may be able to do it against the other ACC teams. He may be able to get himself into the ACC championship game, but that's always going to linger for me. Always going to linger. Hey, when you were down 1 score, you couldn't do the Deshaun Watson and go be legendary. I mean, and maybe the offensive line couldn't allow him to do it either. But at the end of the day, it kind of does fall back on the quarterback legacy. The other thing is that offensive line. Big question marks now for the offensive line and why they could only rush for 31 yards. Why they couldn't get anything going rushing the ball. That's not a recipe for success against any team. You've got to be able to run the ball. You've got to be able to run the ball. That it's just not, you cannot even think about not rushing the ball like Clemson seemed to do, even within a tie game or a 1-score game, just completely abandoning the run. So that's where it goes back to my third biggest question. So we've got quarterback decision-making in the big game, still a question. Offensive line, being able to protect and also push, big question still. And then third is Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley, to me, is still got a lot out to prove. He laid a big egg against Georgia in the national championship game. And now what we've seen with Clemson is outside of an ACC championship game, what has he been able to do to help this team look like they have a pulse on offense, or they have a clue, or at least that they're creative? That was the biggest frustration for me, is LSU came out, and even with all the talent in the world they have, they were trying different things. They were mixing it up. They were throwing in a trick play here or there. They were doing sweeps. They were doing motions. They were trying different things. It didn't seem like Clemson was able to do that, or maybe even tried to do that. So there's a still big question there for me with offensive play calling. I think if you talk to the coaching staff, if you want me to give you the coaching speech, if you want me to get the coach's coach speech for you, I'll walk away with this, because we're at our time here. I'll walk away with this. It was really a tie game for a quarter, a full third quarter maybe. Then let me look at the scoring here real quick. So Clemson was up 10-3 at halftime. So for 2 quarters, Clemson was up. LSU scored 7 in the third quarter. So it was 10-10 in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. So this game was tied, or Clemson was winning for the majority of the game. LSU won in the fourth quarter. Clemson could not score any after halftime. So adjustments were not made at all based on that. So what we're seeing is that Clemson was able to at least hang as long as they could. LSU eventually comes out on top. If you want me to give you the positive spin to it, the coaches speak to it, is that you should be able to continue to develop what you have and hopefully be better by the end of the season, and maybe compete in these difficult games a little bit more than you were, and not kind of trail off towards the end. That big interception for Cade Klubnik was one that I thought would be a killer, but the defense was able to hold tough. Referee or not, it happened. And so they still kept him in the game. Clemson's offense has got to find some sort of identity, some sort of confidence, some sort of creativity. That will be the biggest thing for me. They have talented players. Can they put it together? Or is this something where this is the start of even bigger problems they're going to snowball against other teams as well? I always said this as we went through, no matter what, I said 24-21 Clemson. I thought it would be a close game, but I always said this. I do believe that this is a matchup between 2 really good teams. I believe 2 top 10 teams. I still believe that. LSU walks away the winner here. They possibly could be one of the better teams in the country. If you look at compared to the other teams we've seen this weekend, this Saturday, LSU's up there with one of the better teams in the country for sure. So there's a lot that you can build on, but still a ton of frustration, as I'm sure you're aware as well. All right. Hey, I appreciate everyone being a part of this live edition of a post-game show. I know it's part of the Locked On podcast, and this is my first time. So hopefully I did well for you. So thank you for being a part of the show. I'm going to try to do this every week and kind of give you a post-game thoughts, as we get through. It is midnight now, so I'm about to go hit the bed and try not to think about this game. If there's anything I could give you any advice of, is after being a Clemson fan since I was like 4 years old, is don't let it take away your sleep. All right. Go put the CPAP machine on and go to bed. All right. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. This is also a big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll and Locked On Big 12 lead the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview show only Locked On can do. Catch Locked On Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hey, I appreciate everyone being a part of the show, being a part of this live edition of the show. I know there's a ton of comments in there. If I went through all of them, I would probably have to stay up for the next 5 hours. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'll promise for you. I'm going to go into the comments tomorrow morning, and I'm just going to start replying to you. As many as I can, I'm going to reply to you. And hey, I'm going to take the pounding and the beating that I deserve for being confident when I was confident. But I also want to say this one thing to those LSU fans in the comments. Go back and listen to some of my videos, because I listened to you when you told me what we needed to look for or be careful of. And I was pretty nervous on a lot of the things that actually did happen. So I wasn't fully orange covered glasses, even though, I was a little bit, but I wasn't fully. All right. I did give you a lot of credit where credit's due. So, hey, all right, Tiger fans, thank you so much again for making Locked On Clemson, for being a part of the show tonight, and for supporting me. And as always, Tiger fans, win or lose, I'll see you on Monday, and I'll see you at the top of the hill.